3, 2.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Kathy Tolman, principal of Bridges Alternative School in Eastern North Carolina. Many of you attending this convention know what it was like back in the 70s and 80s when you were teaching. Sit back and ask yourself, what do you do when your teachers come to you and ask, how are we supposed to teach face-to-face and virtually and still get our students engaged? Well, we're so glad you made this session. See how Jenny Combs, a language arts and social studies teacher, along with Jill King, our EC teacher, made this happen. Thanks, Jenny and Jill.
Hi. So as Dr. Tillman mentioned, we are from Bridges in Carteret County, and we are two educators who were, like many of us, going from the brick and mortar to online learning. And we did that by using games to meet the needs of our online learners. And we're going to just tell you a little bit about ourselves before we get started. So I am Jenny Combs, and this is my co-host,
Jill King.
And we started like everybody else does as strangers. However, that would never be noticed from our teaching during virtual learning. We are known as Thing 1 and Thing 2 around the building. Ms. King is Thing 1 and I am Thing 2. However, during the pandemic, I had only been at Bridges for a month and 1 week exactly when the pandemic hit. So I was still getting my feet wet into the curriculum and all that goes into accepting a new position in a new school when everything changed in general. So we started collaborating and working together. And we are finding that if we can tell anybody one thing to take away is that teachers have to have a team, especially during virtual learning.
Well, how do we plan together? We had just met. I've been teaching for about 25 years. I've been here at Bridges for at least 10 that I can remember, but we had to break Ms. Combs in quickly to the needs of the students. And we know that if the kids weren't with us, they were spending all of their free time playing games, video games. So how do you get them to sign in to do math and reading and science and social studies when they have figured out that I don't have to get up at 7 and I don't have to go to class and I can stay in bed all day and play video games? So we had to draw them in somehow, some way. And this is how we came up with this plan.
So when you talk about gamification, the dictionary definition is that you transform your classroom environment to have game-based learning through creativity, collaboration, and play. And that sounds all great in theory and on paper. But when we got to thinking about how to incorporate that, it worked really well when we first started out working together in the classroom. But trying to apply that to virtual learning, we really had to think outside the box. So we used good teaching strategies, good pedagogy, and thought like you would think to plan for any other lesson, but just one key difference. It's like a birthday party. So if you think about it, every birthday party you've been to probably had a theme, and the colors, the decorations, all match. Everything is all based around the theme, whether or not you went to a Fortnite birthday party for a teenager who loves video games, or you were at a toddler's Dr. Seuss birthday party. The theme was revolved around whatever character or kind of topic that that student or that child enjoyed. The same goes for planning those gamification lessons. You think of the party theme as your unit theme. So you think of, you might make a video game connection, you might make a board game connection, some kind of game that students play and you kind of use a play on words for whatever content you're teaching, and you tie those two together. Then you're going to need a candle, because every birthday cake needs a candle, and that's your activating strategy, and that's what gets students roped into your lesson. On top of your cupcake is your frosting. Those are your engaging activities, because without an engagement, your students are not getting what they need from your lesson. And without that frosting on that cupcake, you're probably not getting those extra calories you want either. So the cupcake is the actual standards and the core activities. So everything that you have to cover all packed into that one little cupcake. And then you wrap it up with a little bit of assessment. And just like that, you have a way to plan a lesson. But there's still a little bit more to it.
Well, we started out face-to-face last year, and our classroom was decorated with all kinds of video game decor. We are hands-on type people, so the kids had problems to do and that were related to the content, but pretty much this was going from decor to virtual in 0 to 60 seconds. So next, we had to look at the way that designing lessons would benefit the students and how it builds relationships and engagement. The assessments that we can do online and virtually, we can roll all of this into one big birthday party, for lack of a better term. It is pretty much like a humongous birthday party. So when we have a party, we have a good time. Kids are enjoying themselves, it is engaging. We still sneak assessments in there that are in our standards and provide positive reinforcement, which helps curb the behavior problems. And of course, we always have to have data to prove what we are doing is working. Okay?
So let's recap. School plus cupcake style birthday party planning, plus a Chromebook, plus all these great apps equals virtual learning. Okay, maybe you're like me when it comes to math. Just log into your Zappel Scroot, scroll down to your Zircle app, and you have the kids work on the assignment, sent through Zackle-Scram, and send the links posted in Zumblekick. That sounds really complicated. That's a lot of words, and we need to slow it down. So let's put it for a way for you to see visually how we have implemented this.
Yes, what does this look like, Ms. Combs? We want to speak about this in terms that us, I would say, not elderly generation, but us experienced veteran teachers can understand.
Absolutely. So first, let's just think about statistics. 66% of kids between the ages of 8 to 12 are spending 2 hours per day playing video games. That's a massive amount of time and a massive amount of students who are all interested in the same thing. And so when we thought about it, what connections can we make to the content? I'm really making it a stretch because some of these video games are graphic. Some of these video games are of things I've never heard of. The generation is very different. I have to get to know my students. And so we looked at the standards and decided, for example, Minecraft here is a well-known video game. Minecraft. And then we started doing some brainstorming. What does that have to do with anything? So we did some play on words. Mining. Okay, well, when do we cover that? Great, we're covering 7th grade, we're covering 6th grade Industrial Revolution right now. So let's add that in there. But wait a minute, we've got integers. We've got to get integers covered. How in the world can we fit that in? It doesn't even make sense. So we designed some activities that would just use pictures from Minecraft. And we said we were mining for integers because we're going to find the integers. So it doesn't always have to be that the activity is exactly within the same context. It just has to be able to connect in some way. And a lot of times it's just a play on words, just a little hook to get them roped in. So let's kind of see how that lesson played out for us.
So we are a hybrid model, and we have been hybrid since the beginning of this school year. So we had some students that were face-to-face for 2 days a week and then at home for the remainder of the week. So we had to do both. We had to do both the virtual and the face-to-face simultaneously because we had some students that were 100% virtual. So how do you mesh those together? So this was one of my favorites, is using Minecraft. And here the student is reading about the Industrial Revolution, and it's in a scene set up sort of birthday party theme.
So he takes it another step further. And during the virtual session, I have the students who are online there. They are doing their online assignment. Well, my face-to-face student is doing the mining for integer solving activity. And I've given the instructions virtually. My face-to-face students are completing assignments. Then we come back together. And then we have ways for when students are not there to be able to make up the assignments that is being presented live, but everybody's working on something. So it works a lot like having station rotation groups or centers. Everybody is doing something. So just one of your centers just happens to be your virtual center. And then in our virtual format, there are many ways we have incorporated different lessons, but one of the ways we did it for Minecraft was we used an escape room. And we'll talk a little bit more about what escape rooms look like, but we used Google Forms to play videos and to have students find information and answer questions. And that was something that they could do independently while I was working with my face-to-face students, and then we come back together to collaborate.
Please, Ms. Combe, may I have some more examples, please?
Absolutely. Ms. King, do you remember The Amazing Race?
I love that show. We had to go all over the world and find different things and compete. And it was exciting to see who was going to win and see if he could solve the problems and the challenges and overcome all these roadblock things that would set them back, or detours. And oh my gosh, yes, this was such fun.
So this is an example of the actual slideshow that we had for the students. We had the music playing on loop for the theme song as they started the challenge. Then from there, the students were given a task, and it said the timer was set. They go to their breakout rooms, and then they had to complete a task, and they are the leader of teams of two, and they had to pick someone to report back, and then they had to have an adult referee for disagreements. And we have enough staff that we had enough adults able to participate. And that's another key thing to point out there, is if you have enough hands on deck, you have maybe an aide that would sit in on a Google Meet, or you have a school resource officer or any person in the building willing to sit in and participate, you will see the engagement spark. Our students love interacting with our school resource officer, and they look forward to the days that he participates in our activities. So that's another piece of engagement. So they look for clues, and they're studying imperialism during this time. And then they get to a choose your own adventure. They have to click left or right as they read the statements, and they choose which direction they go. They continue driving as if they were really on a race around the world. And then they cross the finish line when they've solved their clues, and they get a fake check for $1 million and close out the session with celebrations together.
So how about you? Have you been asked how's this distance virtual learning is going so far? Has anybody really asked? Well, yes, it is like 1 hour here is 7 hours on Earth.
And sometimes it takes about that amount of time to plan.
So here's some more examples of things that we did. Ms. Combs is wearing my graduation gown to be like Judge Combs. And we had a jury and a trial for Bart Simpson, who was accused of stealing. So, you know, just another way to engage the kids. They had a role in this, and it was really fun. We
had the Titan games to complete a unit on Greek mythology. It was multifaceted. We had a COVID-friendly feast because we only had 2 students, so they had their own individual portions and they brought in the stuff that they were eating. But we had a outdoor activity to do a PE style Titan game where they did relay races, and the relay races had questions for their English that they were reading, and then they connected it to social studies with a virtual field trip. They had hands-on STEM projects to build. So we used all the subjects in our units, and that's kind of ultimately our goal within this is we work smarter, not harder. And so we combine everything together, and we also make students see that you are able to integrate across settings and that science really does connect to social studies, and that connects to math too. And it makes a big difference with students.
Oh, one more connection, Ms. Combs. We have one of the top finalists from the Titan Games that works in our school system. So if you really watched it, you would know that our coach over at Croton High School, he come in second, but hey, just being there was fabulous.
Absolutely. So we try and make connections to anything that we can, people that we know, and try and bring it back to games, game shows, board games, video games, anything that connects to the students, like Shark Tank, when we covered our units on debates. And then we also were having them make it a STEM project as well. So the student had to present an original idea. They had to give their claim as to why their products should be bought, and then they had a panel of judges on their Google Meets to be able to determine whether or not they should get the product sold, and they had a rubric scoring.
And then, of course, everybody knows the price is right. Come on down, and you can have all sorts of games and activities. Definitely math integration here with dealing with money, decimals, you know, dollars, you know, looking at estimating. So, you know, this is really a fun way to take the learning and integrate it so that they can enjoy it and actually really do learn it.
And my favorite part is being able to use classtools.net, which I have to say that out of all the websites I have found during virtual learning, it may be one of my favorites. And maybe that's because I love throwback video games, and they're throwback to me, but they're 80s and 90s classic Nintendo games, and they are reinvented for classroom tools. So they have a jackpot version, they have a Price is Right version, Pac-Man, you name it, it is on classtools.net. And so during this unit, we were able to use for the Price is Right and actually be able to have simulations from the actual game show, and we were able to present it in the virtual setting.
This one by far is my favorite. It was Survivor Bridges Edition. So of course I raided my storage building and got all of the tropical things that I could possibly find to make this look like a island. So Miss Combs bringing in the social studies again, and not my favorite subject, but I was actually learning something about the Enlightenment philosophers. You know, when she said we need to study the Enlightenment philosophers, I was like, oh, okay. So we did that. We juiced it up to be into a survivor game. So each of the students were given tasks they had to complete. We had time task. Yes, and we had the first challenge with this was really fun, was to create your team bandana and necklace. So here you get into the social emotional learning connection by teamwork, working together with others, and you know, being able to be self-aware and work on relationships with your co-class, co-students. So this was really fun. It was simple, easy to do, but we had a time limit and we had to earn points. And so I had a team of students, and there was another team of students, and we were competing against each other, you know, and we borrowed some more adults so that we would be able to, you know, have fun as well, and the kids, and build those relationships with the students.
And we had to learn to get creative and flexible when we talked about how to participate from home. So in this segment, we have the students try to complete the task from whatever they had at home and show it on camera during the time that the timer's going on. And then we gave them an option, because we know some students would rather watch. We had a Google form for them to describe the process and what they would have done if they had been here face to face. And then we had a few other ways that we've since learned how to incorporate, but that was how we did it for that challenge. And we kept score, and they had the hot lava that they had to rush over, and they had a food and water challenge that they had to solve puzzles out of a lockbox in order to be able to earn their food for survival, before having the final debate of which philosopher would survive the island and create a new island government. So you probably have heard us talk time and time again that it is relationships that have been the focal points of our lesson planning. And so it's been said that when social distancing is deemed necessary, the social emotional connectiveness is even more critical. And we can say that when we first started, we didn't worry about the frosting and the candles on our cupcakes. We were worried that our cupcakes were there and our cupcakes were sheltered with love, and that we knew that we needed all those cupcakes even if they didn't have their frosting and their sprinkles on them. So we also had different ways to do that, and Ms. King is an expert, I would say, on social skills, so I'll let her share a little bit about the social emotional learning aspect.
So, you know, for the social emotional skills, I pulled out the CASEL wheel that everybody is using these days, and looked at all of the things that they needed to learn how to do to improve their social emotional learning. Being at home, I'm sure you have heard all the news where they're talking about, oh my gosh, the kids need to be back in school. They are suffering emotionally from being at home. And so we're relentless in communicating with them and trying to pull them in to engage them in learning, when, you know, they could have been just doing nothing if that's what they wanted to do. But there were some students that were really needing the attention and were on our meets every day. We met every morning at 7:30, and there was kids up and meeting us every day, 7:30. And it's
Long
really
before then.
yes, and it was really wonderful. So, and we played, even some social emotional games I've included in, especially Kahoot, and we've had the bingo with the COVID bingo, quarantine bingo. So there's lots of ways that you can incorporate games and the social emotional connection and still cover your standards. As soon as we start talking about what Ms. Combs is covering in English language arts or in math or in social studies. And so then we go, we could do this with that, and this goes with this, and we could play with that game. And it really falls into place because we bounce these ideas around and figure them out.
But our biggest thing is that we did not realize how far from relevant we were from our students, even though we had outstanding relationships with our kids until we got really deep into COVID. So with the new year, it brought a few new additions to our building and new students and the need to learn those students. And then I also learned that the things that we thought were relevant last year, and while it was effective, without knowing each student individually and getting to know their interests and that relationship building like you would in the classroom, the lessons seemed to be a little bit more challenging until we kind of got to know them. And one of the biggest things about relevancy I found was knowing what in the world is Among Us. I would like to pride myself on trying to stay hip with the kids per se, as to at least knowing the lingo as to what they're talking about. I had no idea what Among Us was. So Ms. King and I did a little bit of research on the Among Us, and we're going to walk through what it looks like and how we were able to take what Among Us does in the video game and apply it to the classroom.
Well, we did have one student who was an expert at Among Us. And so he was able to teach us how to play the game. And so when we learned how to play the game, then, we could adapt the learning to the game.
So the game starts with what's called a crewmate, and the crew announces that there are some imposters on the ship, and it goes through and it reads you different things, and everybody has a different screen. So you're either a crewmate or you're an
imposter,
and you get that assignment, but only your screen will show that. And then it goes through a series of questions that you have to build up points to earn things. Now, in the kids' version of the game, it's a little less educational. They have a few more tasks that are irrelevant. However, but in the Gimkit Trust No One version that you can get online for teachers, you can make it an academic set. So then once it starts running through the game, then you are trying to decide who is the imposter that is among you. Based on the number of questions, you get to start asking things. And so it becomes either inconclusive or all clear that you know who the imposter is. Ms. King, what's that game you used to play?
What?
A lot like Clue, right?
Oh, the Clue game. Yes, you can eliminate people based on the clues that you are given.
So we had to think back as to what games it was similar to, but that one is what it definitely relates a lot to like. So once they figure out who's all clear, the teacher has a dashboard and can kind of see what's going on. And if the students who are talking through the meet get a little feisty a little bit early and you need to work on some social skills, or if you want to purposely end the game early to make it challenging for them, You control the dashboard and then you call a meeting. And so during that meeting, they have to have some really good speaking and listening skills to discuss who is the imposter and why. And then they vote and determine who was the imposter.
It was not me. I was not the imposter. I bought t-shirts to prove it. Everybody has their own t-shirt. I am not the imposter.
And that led us the door from applying the Among Us game to multiple content areas as a review. It almost replaced Jeopardy. Jeopardy used to be a favorite game in the classroom, and now this is how they almost always want to review. And within the Game Kit option that teachers have, there are different modes that you can play the game. So it's not just the Among Us, but they have different versions and trials that are relatable to them. We took it for a different take and thought we'd try our hand at designing a Google slide version of it. And Ms. King did a fabulous job with that one.
I love doing this because she dipped me in history again. And the kids were given a biography about different explorers, and that's who they had to learn about. And so once they have learned about the different explorers, I picked Christopher Columbus to be the imposter because he was like the most obvious one to not be an imposter, because everybody knows the story about Christopher Columbus, 1492, blah, blah, blah. But I beefed up his story a little bit and everybody else's story was factual. It was right on target, except for Christopher Columbus. And I said, one day we were captured by pirates and they made me scrub the deck and raise the sails. And it was hard work, but they taught me how to read and make maps. I mean, that makes sense, right? And the pirates were searching for gold and jewels and spices from India, which is kind of what Columbus, he was looking for spices in India. So, you know, if they really didn't comprehend what Christopher Columbus's biography, they would have had some stumbling points here. And so when they went ashore and they discovered native tribes, which they called Indians, because they thought they were in India, and the pirates fought with the Indians and took anything valuable. And so Christopher Columbus hid on the island until the pirates left. And I declared that the Queen of Spain was now in charge of this island. And eventually I saw a friendly ship and swam out to it, and it was my brother. And I went to live with him and wrote about my adventures, and the rest is history. This was so much fun to create this fictional version of Christopher Columbus.
So after they went through and did all that, they voted in Google Meets using a poll. And so it was getting them to practice using those tools as well. So as you can see, Ms. King really got into it. She had it animated. It was awesome. So we previously mentioned escape rooms as something that we did, and you may or may not have gone on a vacation or to a bigger city that has escape rooms where you go and you pick the adventure that you're gonna go on, and there's a certain scenario given. They lock you into the room and you have a certain amount of time in a locked room to solve puzzles and overcome challenges, and you have to work together with your team to escape in under that time period. Well, we can't exactly lock kids in a building
Legally.
But what we can do is we can get them engaged so that they cannot leave the room, or when they're virtual, we can literally lock the pages that they're on and then they cannot move on until they have solved the problems. So we have a few tools that we use. We have these breakout EDU boxes that literally have combinations on them that you reset for each activity you do, and the students would get the scenarios and have to solve puzzles and find where we hit it in the room, and that's our face-to-face students. Our students at home had little locks that they had to solve and complete to unlock themselves. And I also showed you the Minecraft version that we did in Google Forms. So Google Form has that option where it will not go on to the next question until you get it correct. And then, you know, to help you out every now and then, you could print out these escape rooms and the theme ideas from websites that teachers have created from teacher created materials.
Yes, we did not invent all of these things. We do not have the time or patience to do this. Other people have created these things, these games, these activities, and we have just telling you how we incorporated them. Okay, by no means do we take credit for doing, actually making them.
So I'm sure you're getting to the point of our presentation where you're like, oh my goodness, that's a lot going on. And then you're also thinking, oh my gosh, I can see so many things going wrong. Well, a lot of it has been trial and error. And there is a lot of, what if that happens? And then it happened. So we're going to kind of troubleshoot some of the things that we've seen and happened and kind of explain some of those processes. So one of our biggest issues this year was when we got some new students in that they didn't have that relationship built with us. So getting them to initially log on was a bit of an uphill battle until they learned that we were consistently going to call them and reach out and try and get to know them. And during that time, we would record our videos and go about our lessons. And then we edited them in a program called Edpuzzle that allowed us to put questions at certain points in our video and then post it to our Google Classroom where our students upload their work.
But the internet was down.
Like almost every day.
It was awful. Yeah.
So
connectivity issues. Oh my goodness.
With connectivity, we just made our expectations clear the same we made our expectations outside of the classroom. They know that if for some reason Ms. Combs or Mrs. King is not on Google Meets, send us an email and we will try and explain what's going on. And that there was always an alternative assignment for when we were not meeting, and that was to do a program that they could do from home independently. So there was always those pieces in place, and we would record our lesson at a later time and sometimes have to post a little bit later. So it was more of a trial and error, and that's still a day-to-day issue.
But Ms. Combs, I can't log in. I don't remember my password. What's my username?
Which, with giving them an email with their password on the day of, even with the directions, still sometimes is an issue. And we were astounded that students didn't catch on after a while, but I started to realize that it was a lot about the students didn't realize the process of what it looks like to learn from a remote setting. And especially a lot of our students are EC students, so the change was difficult. So we finally learned about how to do remote desktop connections. That was a game changer. We were able to give the students a code. They give us a number that they see on their screen. We type it in and voila. I all of a sudden have the mouse and I am in and I am moving the mouse to go to where I want you to go. And I can see how long you're on my screen and I can see what you're doing. The only downfall is it doesn't last but for so long, but it's long enough to keep a connection to troubleshoot the issues that the students are having.
So Ms. Combs, I know we're running out of time, but there are several things that I also wanted to mention, about managing. We have the Classcraft. Has anybody ever used Classcraft before? Each of this map shows the assignments that the students will have to complete in order to make their mission. And when they make their mission, they get points, and those points can be used with their avatar and that they create. And then on Fridays, we'd have a boss battle, which we would get everybody involved in the boss battle, which had review questions. And everybody wanted to play. So that was a great way of doing this for you. And then at the end, it would tell which students were the most likely to have a pet tiger, you know, some superlatives, most likely to work with NASA. So this was fun when they could see themselves. So how do you keep students motivated? You find what motivates them through the right role model, okay? We've tried having Friday movie parties where they could watch virtually. We'd have, we'd send out stickers, we'd send out popcorn bags, we would send them to, you know, these invitations both virtually and in the mail, so to make sure that they got them, and invite them to participate. This could trigger them into, hey, maybe I want to come and see what we're doing this week or next week because this was really fun. So these videos, movie parties were not just motivational, but they were also relevant to what we were learning about. This is one of my favorites, and these are badges. You can probably have seen now that if you go and you get micro credentials for learning a specific kind of software or program, you get a badge. And if you've gone to certain staff developments, you get a badge. And if you could put all of the assignments on a leaderboard, and if once they have completed them, and they get a badge, and this is posted, but it's anonymous, but posted, and it shows who is really participating, and it could motivate and encourage other students to join as well.
Other goal setting activities that the face-to-face students are doing, the traditional bookets, the traditional social skills lesson, we would just gamify it with the slide background. But again, it's all about the relationship, no matter what extreme or who you might have to show up to your Google Meet or Zoom dressed as.
Oh, please don't use this, those slides against me. Of course, when we're meeting, you know, we do have some parent participation. There are some moms that are there. They are participating with their child. They are encouraging their child. And they were so helpful one day that even one of our students on the virtual meet said, a shout out to all the moms for being online this morning. So that's really great about all of these relationship building and the connectedness that we are having and experiencing with our students.
So if anyone who is watching this or joining us would like to collaborate, come up with more ideas, we are more than happy to share our experiences and help you, or if you could help us. Or if there's ways that we may provide technical support because you saw something and you thought, hey, maybe I can use this in another setting, and we would love to know how we could implement that. We would be more than happy to help you. Our emails are listed below, and we thank you for your time today.
So we don't know everything, but we're really willing to learn the new things. And like I said, we spent the entire summer working together and trying to come up with ways and ideas. And I'm sure some of you have some fabulous ideas, or maybe some games that you have used that we haven't seen. Shoot us an email, because we are really interested in helping kids learn and learn at a higher level than just sitting at home playing mindless video games. We want to encourage them to be mindful. Go ahead, Dr. Toman.
Thank you, Jenny and Jill. It was wonderful. I'm excited every day when I go into your classrooms, and I am so glad that you were able to share that with other educational members of your community. So thank you very much.
Well, thank y'all for inviting us to be here and doing this presentation. We really enjoy it, and I've had a great time today.
And that's all, folks.
Dun, 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 dun.